So welcome everyone, good morning. We have a couple more people coming in, but thanks for being here today. I'm Sandy Morris, Director of Resident Life at the Forest at Duke, and it's lovely to put faces to gym reservations and other email requests. Nice to see you. I want to thank the new Resident Orientation Committee. We have several members here today for continuing this series and finding a way to bring it to new residents so you have this helpful information as you move to the forest. Ellen's going to talk a little bit more about the program in a minute, but I just wanted to give you a few housekeeping tips. Karen Henry is our speaker today. We're delighted to have her. When she starts speaking, she will be sharing her screen, and that will take up the majority of the screen and what you see. Just a reminder that we are recording this session so we can air it on our in-house channel Thursday at 2:30. So you may appear as a small picture in that on the recording. If you don't want to, please turn off your camera now. You'll still be able to hear and see the presentation, but we won't be able to see you. Because of the group size, we have formatted today's lecture, so we will open for questions at the end. To ask a question, raise your hand, or you can use the chat feature. I'll be facilitating that portion. Karen may go off script and ask for questions in the middle. I'll try and keep up with her if she does that, but otherwise, we're gonna ask you to hold your questions to until the end. With that, again, thanks for coming. We're delighted to have you here, and I'd like to introduce Ellen Barrett, Chair of the new Resident Orientation Committee, to introduce the program.
Thank you very much, Sandy, and it would not be possible for us to be doing this without the great help of Sandy and her team. Zoom was a little overpowering for most of us, and so we turned to Sandy, and with great gratitude, here we are today. And I am thrilled to be looking at some of your faces on here. I mean, this has been the most trying 6 months that I've had as the chair of this lovely new Residents Orientation Committee. Our purpose really is to make you all feel welcome. And we feel we've done a pitiful job, but that's because of COVID-19. So we now have this series that's starting today. We'll go for 7 weeks, and we really hope that you all participate and begin to feel like you know more about what the forest is all about. And other than just saying a great big huge welcome to you all, I'm going to turn it over to Daniel Langmeyer, who is really coordinating our Life of the Forest program this year. And Daniel, take it away, because we've got to stay on time. Daniel, you need to unmute.
I figured it out. Okay, I'm going to be very brief because I don't really have much of a role. I'm delighted to be able to have organized this. It was handed to me, and people before me did a very good job. I'm delighted to be part of this. When I first got here, and even before, this series was very useful to me. And I think we are starting off with a very good first speaker. Karen Henry is the Chief Financial Officer. She is very informative. I know I was surprised by what she had to say. You may be as well. And the other thing which I think is remarkable about somebody who's been here so long is that she has yet to be convicted of embezzlement. That was a joke. I'm sorry, I throw those things in out of nervousness. At that, I think I'm going to turn it back before I say something else inappropriate.
So Karen, if you want to go ahead and start sharing your screen, away we go.
All right, can you see my screen? Everybody?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, great. Well, good morning, and thank you so much, Daniel, for the introduction. I really, really appreciate that. Just a little bit more about me before we get going is, if you had not had the opportunity to meet me, yes, I have not been convicted of embezzlement, no. I'd like to share with you my philosophy The main key driver in everything that I do and instill in my staff is that it's really not just about providing the information on time and being accurate. It's ensuring that it's understood and useful to those that need it. That's what's really, really, really important to me. So, okay, let's get started. And since I'm the first presenter in this series, I hope that you all give me some grace if we have some hiccups as we go along, because we're all learning this together. And again, I really reiterate what both Ellen and Daniel and Sandy have said. It's really great to begin to have these presentations again, especially for the newest members in our Forest family. A big, big welcome to all of you as you join me this morning. And, you know, due to my tenure, I celebrated my 15-year anniversary this year. And yes, I started when I was in high school, so you know. I had the opportunity to be a part of the forming of this great program. And we started this program, believe it or not, in 2013. We worked very closely with the resident committee in order to develop presentations that were meaningful and provided information that new residents would find to be helpful. So we've made improvements and adjustments and modifications through the years as a result of your feedback. And again, we welcome your feedback just as we're doing this now, because these are really for your benefit. Current residents have also found these to be very informative as well. And I see that some of you are joining us this morning, and a big welcome to you too. All right. Let's see. Oh, I'm having trouble. Oh, there we go. Woo. So what are we going to talk about this morning? First, some fast facts. Then the finance committees that we have here at the Forest. How do the finances work? Financial structure is based on a contract. What are the benefits that you all have as residents here at the Forest for these discounted rates in the health center? And information that's available in the library. Here's some fast facts. We have a $20 million operating budget, a $2.5 million capital budget. We have approximately 275 employees. We have approximately 400 residents. Our bonds are A Fitch rated. The Forest received a BBB+ in 2007. And then in September 2017, when we refinanced the debt, we were upgraded to an A-. Then recently in October 2019, after another review, we were upgraded to an A. This puts the Forest in a really elite category. There are only 150 out of approximately 2,000 continuing care retirement facilities that are rated. That's less than 10%. And of those 150 that are rated, only 30 are in the A category. So kudos to the Forest. We are CCAC CARF accredited. We got that accreditation in the year 2007. We have an unqualified audit for all of the years that we have been in existence, 28 years. Happy birthday to the Forest this month. Some finance committees. The board finance committee. Well, what does the board do? They're responsible to provide financial oversight. They oversee the budget and its development, investments, and our independent audit process. They meet at least 4 times a year, and they have a standing agenda. They review the financials, investment performance, and ratios. Something you may not know, 2 residents currently serve on this board committee. Now, how about your resident finance committee? From their charter, their mission is to monitor and report to the Residents Association on all financial matters that relate to the forest. I meet monthly with this group and we discuss several topics like the financial statements, the audit, actuarial funded status, and investment performance. They also meet jointly once a year with the Board Finance Committee in person. When I was first approached by the Residents Committee in 2013 to develop a presentation, they said, you know, Karen, can you explain how the finances work? I said, well, the area of finance is very wide and cannot easily be explained in a 1-hour presentation, but I'm up for the challenge. This actually resulted in me giving 3 presentations, and now we currently are down to the present 2. Each year, the budget is approved by the Board of Directors at their August meeting. If there are any increases to service fees that are effective on October 1st, these are announced in the letter to the residents from the chairman of the board, and that would serve as residents' 30-day notice. As I said in the beginning, my goal is to present and explain information in a way that people can understand. I do my best not to use a lot of accounting language in order to do that. My greatest satisfaction has been when I see a light bulb go on and you have an aha moment. So here we go, I'm going to try that out. Monthly and entrance fees that are charged are based on the forest contract. Residents have a contract, your residence and care agreement, in which entry fees paid allow for discounted daily rates in the Health and Wellness Center. This can be thought of as a prepayment of health care. So the residents in your contract works like an insurance product, which is why the Forest at Duke is regulated by the North Carolina Department of Insurance, and an independent actuary reviews our pricing every year. I hope that this was the aha moment and there were some light bulbs. A portion of the monthly service fees and the entry fees must cover healthcare expenses. Therefore, they may be deductible as a medical expense for federal income tax purposes. So every year you receive that medical deduction letter, and that states the amount that may be tax deductible. This is a different amount every year. So that's why you get a letter every year in January in time to do your taxes, because it's based on the actual year-end results of the organization. And our year-end is September 30th. So what about our budget? And speaking more about the finances, what does the budget take into account? Well, just like baking a cake, there are key ingredients that have to be incorporated into the budget each year. And what are some of those things? Services that are contractually promised. Number 1 and foremost, this comes from your residence and care agreement. What does it take to provide the services that are outlined in your agreement, and did they change this year? Expenditures that are necessary for insurance, regulatory, and audit compliance. Some people have affectionately termed me the queen of compliance, because that is really part of my responsibility, is to ensure that all of the filings, reports, etc. are done. And let me tell you, there's a lot of people that we report to. Debt compliance. There are certain ratios that need to be maintained as stated in our loan documents. We need to maintain accreditations and certifications. We need to have enough money to pay the principal and interest on any outstanding debt, and have money to maintain our physical plant. Also, keep in mind that the forest at Duke is a service industry. So therefore, it should be of no surprise that approximately 70% of all of our operating expenses are related to staff. A common misnomer about the forest being a nonprofit 501c3 corporation is that revenue minus expense should equal zero. Well, yearly budgets have to factor in money to invest back to the business for capital, as well as reserve for any unplanned events. This is not my quote. There is a famous quote from a nun, a sister in a Catholic CCRC up in Pennsylvania, and she said, "No margin, no mission." Here came my challenge of the day. Karen, can you really tell us simply how the finances work here? Well, simply put, I like the number 3. It keeps it simple. There are 3 main drivers to financial success: occupancy, expense control, and entry fees from new residents. Occupancy. How many people are living here and where? How many apartments and cottages are available to sell? Did we sell and move in as many as we budgeted to meet our operational needs? Expense control. Is our actual spending in line with the budget based on services we're contracted to provide and obligations we're required to fulfill? If all of these 3 things are in line, there's enough money to pay our operating expenses, capital expenditures, and debt service without going into the savings account. Monthly service fees and healthcare fees pay for your everyday ongoing expenses like payroll and food, and a portion of the entry fees pay for debt service and capital needs. So let's talk about your contract. As new residents can really appreciate, you are the ones that went out recently to visit other communities and see who you wanted to, see the community that you wanted to select to live in. And thank you for choosing the Forest at Duke. You picked the right one. So as you were going and looking, you thought, you know what? All of these places look so familiar and offer the same kind of services, but they have different fees. Exactly. We look a lot the same and we really do provide a lot of the same things, but what really matters in how your fees are charged is all based on the type of contract that that facility offers. So what kind of contracts are there? There's a type A or extensive. This would be like Galloway Ridge. Most of the risk is on the organization. Or there's a type B, where there's a shared risk. That would be like the Forest at Duke or Carroll Woods. Or a type C or a fee-for-service contract like Crowsdale. So the first 2 are what we call insurance products, because there is the fees that are charged in the health center are not what you would pay for as a market rate, which is the difference in a fee-for-service. In a fee-for-service, if you look at their fee sheet, their fees are very different in independent living because they don't include healthcare. In the health center, you would pay market rate for those services. For example, if you're at the Forest at Duke and you're in the health center, you pay about $5,400 a month. If you were at Crowsdale or a similar one, you would be paying $10,000 to $20,000 a month. Benefits to your discounted rates. A lot of questions I receive is about how do my prepaid days work? As a part of your residence and care agreement, every resident receives 15 prepaid days to use in the health center. They are not calendar based and they cannot exceed 15. When you use a day, you must be back in your independent living residence for a full month and you accrue back a day. When you move permanently to the health center, you first use your balance in the prepaid account and then you begin to pay the daily rate in the healthcare center. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit. So if you have your handout in front of you with our fee sheet, that's what I'm going to talk about now, because it's really important. If you look at that grid, the first thing you need to do to understand it is knowing whether you are temporary or whether you're permanent. If you're temporary, you continue to reside in your apartment or cottage. You intend to go back to your residence once you recover. If you're permanent, you no longer have an independent living residence. You've conducted your walkthrough with Nathan Summers, and you have moved into your new home in the Health and Wellness Center. So about the fees, what is a per diem? A per diem, or it's a daily rate, is the amount that we would charge for a room in the health center if you did not live at the Forest. This is also what's called the Medicare A room rate, and it's $444 a day currently. So if you are a resident, you don't pay $444 a day. Here's what you would pay. If you are a single resident that permanently resides in the health center, it's $179 a day. If you are temporary, and after you've used all of your prepaid day balance, and you are still in the health center, it would be $267 a day. If you are part of a couple, and one person is in the independent living residence, and one is in the health center permanently, the rate for the person in the health center is $68 a day. Well, okay, Karen, this is all great, lots of numbers. So I think what's a lot easier to try to understand this is, can you show me what that would look like on my bill? So we're going to look at a couple of examples. All right, let's say that you are a single resident in a one-bedroom apartment and you stay 4 days in the health center and your prepaid day balance is 15. We'll make it easy. So what am I going to see on my bill? Now this person is still in independent living. They're temporary, so they're still going to be paying their monthly service fee for the apartment. What will I pay for the healthcare room? Nothing. And why is that? Because you had 4 prepaid days to use. Now, the prepaid day balance for this resident will be 11. If they don't return, if they go right back to the health, to their apartment, and they don't return to the health center, they will accrue 1 day back each month to get them back up to 15. The next example would be, what if it's that same resident, but they stay 20 days in the health center and they had a balance of 15 in their prepaid days. Now they're still living in their apartment. They haven't, they're not a permanent resident, they're temporary, so their monthly bill will not change for the apartment. How about the health center? They will pay 5 days at the $267 a day, which is the temporary rate, for $1,335. Now, why is it only 5 days? Because they utilized 15 of their free days and only had to pay for the 5. So now their prepaid day balance is 0. So after that stay, they went back to their apartment and they did not return to the health center. We'll make it easy. After a month, 1 day would accrue back, and now their balance would be 1. As long as they don't return to the health center, 1 day would accrue back until they reach 15. Let's take another example. A single independent resident moves permanently to the Health and Wellness Center, make it easy on the first day of the month, and they have a prepaid day balance of 15 days. What will their bill look like? And let's just assume also that they have given their keys to Nathan, all their contents are done, so they are not paying for the apartment. So since they are now no longer living in the apartment and they have a new address in the Health and Wellness Center, their monthly service fee will be 0. Now for the health center, what will they pay? All right, sometimes I get a question from residents, Karen, I've never used my 15 days. I said, well, here's where you do. If you move permanently into the Health and Wellness Center, the first 15 days or whatever balance that you have, in this case, this person had 15, would be utilized for that. So you would not pay anything for the first 15. You would only be paying the last 15 days in the 30-day month at $179 a day. Now remember that other example we had before, it was a much higher rate. This is the permanent rate at $179. To use the prepaid days, now, and residents in the Health and Wellness Center, they don't need to have a prepaid day balance because that is where they live. It is only for independent living residents that it applies. The next monthly bill for this resident would be 30 days at the $179 a day, or $53.70. All right, this is a little bit more of the confusing one when we have a couple. One resides in a 1-bedroom apartment and one permanently resides in the health center. What does their bill look like? The monthly service fee for their apartment does not change. What does it look like for the resident in the health center? The resident in the health center will pay $68 a day. Healthcare fees are per day for their room. And that is much different, a much different discounted rate. It's not the $179 that a single resident would pay, it's $68. So for this resident living permanently in the Health and Wellness Center with their own room, 3 meals a day, and 24 hours of care, it's $68 a day. If you are really interested in the finances, there is information that's available to you in the library. Monthly financial statements are there in the library, as well as quarterly investment performance, the budget, the audit, and the disclosure statement. So that concludes my presentation, and I will offer up any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Karen. Yeah, Jan Tushinsky has a question.
All right.
Why is the daily cost when you're a temporary resident in healthcare so much more, because you're also paying your monthly service fee, which I understand has to keep the place going, but why is that so much more than when you become a permanent resident in healthcare?
When the rates were developed in the beginning, it's based on whether you're temporary or you're permanent. A permanent resident in the Health and Wellness Center is going to get the most deep discounted rates as part of the contract because that's where they will be living permanently. Most residents do not, I hardly ever bill the 60% rate. Most residents will probably discharge out of the health center before their prepaid days are used up.
Thank you.
Carol Carson has a question. And Jean, I see you next. Carol, did you unmute yourself?
I didn't have a question.
Oh, okay. All right. Jean, go ahead, Jean Vale.
Mine's pretty simple. On the chart, what does the MSF stand for under these different categories? MSF?
Monthly service fee.
Pardon me?
Monthly service fee.
Well, monthly service fee. Okay, thank you.
You are welcome.
Yes, Jeff Collins has a question.
Yes, I assume if you have long-term care insurance, that can usually be used to cover expenses in the health center, but is that correct?
Yes, long-term care insurance is for convalescent care. And if you live in assisted living or skilled nursing and you have a long-term care, insurance, we are licensed and that would apply for your, depending on the type of insurance that you have. My next presentation that's next week talks about specifically what you're saying, healthcare services that are provided here at the Forest or that you have on site, how are they paid for? And so if you're interested, come to that one.
Daniel Langmeyer has a question.
Yeah, what has been the impact of the pandemic on the finances, costs, and otherwise recently?
I'm happy to report that throughout this year, and we are just almost at our year end, we are in a good financial position. We will meet all of our targets and we have enough money to pay everything that we need to, and we'll meet our bond covenants at the end of the year. So if you look at the financial statements, you may see some departments are over or under. We have made, as far as if you think about how we've been responding to this, and every department has had an opportunity to have to respond to this. They may have an expense that, like for instance, Sandy's department may not have a lot of activities that are done in person, but we have an expense for doing them electronically. So it would just be a shift of that, but I'm happy to report that we are doing well.
Well, any other questions? Okay. No?
Right group.
Okay. Ellen, did you want to wrap us up in any way, or? I'll just announce next week, I guess. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I just want to thank you all for coming and remind you that if you want clarification, this will be televised on channel 1390 at 2:30 on Thursday. Is that right, Sandy?
That's right. You nailed it.
Will that be a continual time for these sessions so people will know that it's always 2:30 on Thursday?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so note that to yourselves because that's one way that you can be sure to either see it only if you can't make one of the Tuesday sessions. So that's about it for me. I'll wrap it up and give it back to Sandy.
Well, thanks everyone. Again, Karen is going to speak again next week with Leanne Bailey Clayton reviewing clinical services and finance. So we hope you'll tune in. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay, goodbye.